ser?
Sí, ara sí.
Hola, bon dia. Benvinguts a un nou esdeveniment organitzat per Català Films. Aquest matí tenim l'honor de tenir entre nosaltres a l'Angus Finney, que ve del Production Finance Market, per parlar-nos de com s'estableix aquest mercat de 2 dies de financers. Però abans de res li volem donar la benvinguda, la introducció, i per això tenim aquí el nou flamant director de l'ITEC, en Xavier Díaz. M'havia après el teu nom en anglès, però millor que no ho faig, perquè la curva se'm cascarà. Però, Xavier, gràcies per estar aquí, per donar suport a aquesta trobada de productors, gràcies a tots per venir. I avui consistirà en això, farem una presentació inicial amb l'Angus, després passarem a uns casos pràctics de companys nostres que ja han estat en aquest mercat i que us explicaran de primera mà com funciona, per bé o malament, i després obrim un torn de preguntes i respostes, d'acord? Doncs, Xavi, moltes gràcies.
Bon dia a tothom i sigueu benvinguts. Com ja sabeu, des del Departament de Cultura apostem clarament per l'audiovisual català. Un dels aspectes que volem impulsar és la seva internacionalització a través del programa institucional Catalan Films and TV. Un programa que porta el nom del desaparegut Consorci, com ja sabeu, una marca amb 30 anys de trajectòria que ha situat internacionalment la nostra producció audiovisual arreu del món. Catalan Films and TV treballa per a tot el sector i amb la voluntat de sumar tots els agents implicats en la seva internacionalització, per així optimitzar totes les accions i recursos que s'hi destinen. El programa té diferents àmbits que comprenen des de la presència internacional a l'audiovisual català, a festivals, mercats internacionals, fins i tot les eines de suport que posen al vostre abast per la internacionalització, com ara les subvencions i sessions informatives, com ara és el cas. En els pròxims mesos tindrem una trobada amb el sector per trobar-nos i treballar amb aquest programa per tal d'explicar-vos quin és el full de ruta i del departament en la idea de crear un pla estratègic i des del qual nodrir-lo amb la ja coneguda impost a les operadores. Per tant, ens hem de trobar amb el sector, ens hem de trobar amb el departament i treballarem per dibuixar la línia dels propers 4 anys de com afrontar aquests recursos amb el sector. Ara, però, seré breu amb la meva intervenció per donar pas a aquesta jornada que és fruit d'aquest esperit de sinergia que esmentava abans entre agents participants en la internacionalització de l'audiovisual. Així doncs, hem cregut convenient fer una presentació a casa nostra de les oportunitats pels productors que ofereixen tant del Production Finance Market com el Micro Market, que es desenvolupen dins el London Film Festival. Aquesta jornada ha estat fruit del treball conjunt entre les diferents àrees de l'ISEC i la Federació PROA. He d'agrair molt, especialment, la participació del David Matamoros, vicepresident de ficció de PROA, com a moderador d'aquest acte, i la presència de l'Angus Finney, representant del Productions Finance Market. Us deixo en bones mans i us desitjo una molt profitosa jornada per a tots vosaltres. Moltes gràcies. Si em permeteu, no em puc quedar amb vosaltres en la jornada perquè tinc altres compromisos per agenda i l'ho dit després.
Segur que és molt profitós. Moltes gràcies per estar aquí, Xavier. Benvingut. I crec que has d'anar a signar subvencions o coses d'aquestes. Et deixem anar. Moltes gràcies. Okay. Agnes, it's you and me now. Okay, so Xavier, our presentation was talking about Catalan Films and TV and the media program and the ICEC and how they put up together this program and the opportunities for the Catalan producers. I've mentioned that this is going to be like a 3-part script. Your introduction, and we'll have some Catalan producers talking about their experiences, good ones and not that good ones, and then we'll open a term for Q&A.
Let's just hope it doesn't sag in the middle.
Exactly. So I will be bilingual today, so I will be mixing English and Catalan. So if anybody does not understand anything of what I say or what you say, I'm going to be here. But let's go back to what's important here, and this is the production finance market in London, 11-13 October this year. This is the 10th edition, and you're the project manager.
That's right. Can I just do a little bit of audience research first?
Sure.
Let's find out how many of you guys have actually been to the PFM before. How many of you have been to the production finance market before? Great. So some of you obviously are going to talk about that once I've done this introduction, which I'm interested in. How many of you have produced films of more than 10 million euros? Anyone done a film more than 10 million euros? Anyone done more than 5 million euros? Anyone done a number of films lower than 1 million euros? Lower than 1 million. Very good. Because what I'm going to talk about, not just in terms of the PFM as a market for larger projects, but also something that's very important for you guys, which is the blending of the PFM with what we call the micro market. We have a strand that we've run for 3 years, which is for films below €1 million. And the reason why we did this was to try and engage with emerging talent, but also, if you like, listen to the market, the film market, and the changes that have come about in terms of sales and distribution and the ability to finance larger films. We think it's really, really important to address the fact that budgets have been coming down, not going up in terms of European content. And that's a very important part of what I'm going to talk about in the next sort of 40 minutes or so. So I have run the PFM now for nearly 10 years, as David said. And I think it might be useful for a little bit of context. The production finance market is not a co-production market. You do not go to London to co-produce. You will meet many producers from all over the world there, but we are not designed as a bringing together of producer to producer across territories. This is what I would call a hard finance, sales and distribution market. It is not geared to co-production. That is in no way criticizing the importance of co-production, especially for European financing models, okay? But it's very important that we get that sorted out very quickly. If you could do the next slide, that'd be great. So, next one, please. Great, so what the PFM actually is a speed dating exercise. What I end up doing is seeing around 120 to 150 projects, and I analyze them and I look at the projects. I don't read the scripts, but I basically throw out the projects which I think are incomplete and unable or not ready to be presented to financiers or sales companies or distributors. And often that means that there isn't a director attached. No financier wants to actually look at a project unless they can see as much of the package as possible. So what do I mean by the package? What I'm looking for when I'm looking at these applications is that there is a script that is what I would call financier ready. That may mean that it's gone through a few drafts. It may mean it's gone through many drafts. But it is not a first draft. Yeah? That's the first point. And I'm looking for a very clear treatment, an outline of the story that I can understand and read. So that's the script on these 5 elements of the package. The second is you, the producer. The producer, the track record, your experience, what you've done before. And the importance of the micro market is that it may be that you haven't actually made a feature film yet. You've done television, you've done other things, you've done shorts, and there is an entry point for the micro element of this market where you can apply with a project lower than €1 million. But the producer's track record, the way you present yourself and your work, is very important. The third element that I mentioned is the director. That's a very, very key element. As I said, it's very hard for financiers to be able to assess the value of a project without knowing who's going to direct it. Yeah? The fourth is the budget. And then, of course, you're now looking at the relationship between the budget, the producer's track record and their experience, the director, and of course, the genre or kind of story it is. I've read numerous projects which have come into the market where the first page starts with the helicopter shot. You can see 60,000 euros already on the screen, and the actual budget is 800,000 euros. And you're thinking, this isn't going to happen. It's not going to work, yeah? So I, of course, am trying to triangulate, if you like, the value of each of these elements. The last element, which often is not in place when you come to the PFM, are the actors. A lot of applications have a wish list of actors, yeah? But they don't necessarily have actors committed. And there we're a little more lenient. We don't expect the entire project to be perfectly packaged. But if you haven't got 4 out of those 5 elements of the package, then I won't basically be looking at inviting you. There is a committee that look at all of the projects that I leave on the table. In other words, I only get rid of around 20 to 25% of the applications. I do that during the summer, yeah? On a beach, you know, a cigar, sunglasses, you know, just throwing the bad ones in the sea, you know. Typical British, you were about to leave Europe, you know, it's really great, isn't it? But being serious, what matters, I think, is the way you see your project and where you think it's at in terms of the timing. Because, of course, the timing of when you actually apply and come into this market is probably going to be an application in May, June, and possibly early July. So you have to think, where's the project going to be by the time you get to London in October? And quite a lot of smart producers keep in touch with me and my team, and they let me know whether or not an additional element has been added, something that has changed. Maybe the budget has changed, maybe the director has changed, or you've actually attached a director when you initially applied without one, yeah? Or maybe there's a piece of casting that has come into play, or there's maybe a piece of financing, or a sales company is attached. All of that communication is entirely good to be able to keep going to Film London during that period between, say, May and through to around September when we make our choices. So that's an important element of this. So these 2 days of speed dating, basically around 60 producers are invited, 55 to 60, and around 60 financiers from all over the world. Yeah? This isn't a heavily English-dominated event. In fact, I prefer people coming from different parts of Europe with projects in their own language rather than too many American and English projects at the PFM. I'll say that again because I'm English and you don't believe me. I prefer...
No, you're right, we don't believe you.
I prefer... The reason why, because in all the work that I've done in the film industry in the last, say, 25, 30 years, and I've traveled all across the world, researching, training, teaching, and I've worked running a film company for 7 or 8 years as well in international finance and sales, is that I actually believe that culturally specific films in your own language have more universal value than films trying to pretend to be American or even English, God forbid, yeah? I really think that's important. So the reason why I'm here, replacing my good colleague Helena, who unfortunately couldn't come, is partly because I'm really passionate about your language, your culture, and making sure that you have the opportunity to meet financiers, distributors, and sales companies who maybe will be able to support, help, become engaged, or even potentially finance some of your films. So that's a very important point. In other words, your applications should be in your own language when it comes to your script. You will have to have an English translation, okay, for financiers and sales companies and distributors to be able to read, but I'm not suggesting that this market is a very Anglo-driven market. It's not. It's an international one. So that's really important. The package I've already talked about. When I say commercial potential, this is a tricky word, I think, commercial. We like to think of commercial as big, yeah? Or with stars, yeah? Or with directors who've got a huge track record. Commercial can be small. It can be perfectly formed. It can be a really wonderful chamber piece done in such a way that actually has, as I said, universal value. So don't think that your projects need to be particularly large. That's not important. Do not get obsessed about budget size. That's not important for the PFM application process. What is important is obviously something that we don't talk about at co-production markets enough, which is sales and distribution. And as you all know, I'm sure, attaching a sales company is a very difficult thing to achieve often on a smaller project. Yeah? It's not an easy thing, and a lot of the time I've noticed in terms of Berlin, Rotterdam, the Cinemat, you know, the European film market, a lot of the discussions are all geared towards co-production at the expense of not understanding the importance of a distribution plan. And that's a really important part of the PFM strategy, where you actually have to engage with sales companies, with distributors, and try very hard to knit together a way that your film is going to get circulated, rather than simply thinking, oh, it's fine because I've got a co-producer or a co-production structure that will get it made. That, to my way of thinking, is limited. It's a very limited way of looking at the importance of the movement of cinema and films. Yeah? So sales and distribution is a very important element of this. I think it's obvious, obviously, that attending, and we'll hear from our guests here who've been at the PFM, that obviously it's a very useful network. Yeah? You go into a room and there's 60 financiers. Maybe you know 5, 10 of them, but the other 50 you may not know. And they're all interested in meeting you because they know that you've been selected. because it's not an automatic market. It's not like turning up at Cannes, yeah, where you can sit on the beach in one of those extremely expensive restaurants getting ill on bad shrimps and find that actually no one's really interested in talking to you. At the PFM, people know that you've been selected. They know there's been a vetting process. So when we talk about networking, there is a kind of elevated level, I guess, of intensity about the market that's useful. No one else is allowed in, yeah? No one else can just sort of turn up. And that's an important element of this. So when I say delegates from around the world, we do have a few people coming in from the US. We have some of the major companies. We have Lionsgate attending. We have Endgame who attend, who of course are in distribution and in financing and development. We're beginning to look more closely at Asian projects. Obviously there's an enormous intensity of interest around China and how China is developing. There's a new Chinese film law that's coming in to legislation over the next 6 months to 12 months. In fact, some of the things that I'll send on to you guys afterwards will be some notes about other interesting elements in the international market and developments. And we have Australia and New Zealand contacts as well, who have come and had great success with their projects. So around 1,000 meetings are held, and the overall production value ranges between about 250 to 300 million euros. Now, let me just put that in context, because I talked about budget levels, yeah? 10 years ago when I started this market, the average European film at the PFM, in terms of budget, was 11 million euros. It was slightly skewed by a very large Indian project, but let's just look at the numbers. It came down the next year to 8 million euros, and then it came down to 5.5, then to 4, then to 3.5. This is the average project at the PFM. And now it's settled at around 3 to 4 million euros. So you can see that the market itself has been pushing, if you like, budget levels down, making it harder for producers, basically. Can we have the next slide, please? So why do we hold this in London? Well, firstly, because the UK is absolutely dreadful at co-production. Yes, you heard that from an English person. Again, the truth is that the UK has made it very difficult to co-produce with it. Yeah? It's had very difficult spend laws. It's an expensive territory. And although we have an incentive system, it tends to be very Anglo-centric. So Helen and my colleague, who would have been with you 11 years ago when she was thinking about what to do in London, at Film London, in the international department, felt that it was important to differentiate between co-production and finance. The truth is that London has more international sales agents outside LA than any other territory in the world. Why? Partly because of the time difference. In London, you can get both ways around the world, yeah? We also seem to have a knack for international sales and an appetite for it. That's not to say that all the international sales companies are from the UK who attend the PFM. Actually, I think quite a lot of the English sales companies are quite arrogant about foreign language films. They tend to be dismissive. They also tend to be rather price conscious. It's a bit like Naomi Campbell, the model. You know, if you don't pay her $10,000, she doesn't get out of bed. So you're kind of at this stage with some of the UK companies who I don't think know how to handle sometimes your foreign language films. And when I say foreign language, I'm not talking about that word art house. I think people use the word art house to put films in a ghetto. Actually, what I'm talking about is world cinema. It's a much classier way of describing your foreign language film than an art house film, yeah? And if you think about Berlin and the success that Berlin has experienced in the last, say, 10 years in terms of the European film market, you'll notice the words world cinema stamped all over that market, yeah? And that is about films that have culturally specific values, yeah? Very, very intricate stories often, but have universal value. And when they're really well made, can travel, yeah? So that's a very important part of this. We always have a keynote speaker. We've had a range of people. We've had Mark Gill, Daniel Batsek, Pierre-Ange Le Programme, Jeremy Thomas, Marianne Gray from Yellowbird, Michael Barker, Sony Picture Classics, who of course is one of the most important routes for world cinema into the North American market at Sony Pictures Classics, Alison Thompson, who set up recently an international sales company, and Bertrand Fave, who of course is a vastly experienced French producer. So quite a myriad of different keynote speakers. They tend to kick off the PFM over about an hour and a half, and normally they are reasonably relaxed and say something interesting rather than reading off a sheet. Next slide, please. So who's actually attending? Next one, please. So quite a lot of the people who attend are quite experienced, yeah? But what I find is that the really experienced producers, those people who've got huge track records and make much larger films, tend to look down on the PFM as, we don't need to do that. We're beyond that. I don't want to sit in a room with loads of other people pitching. I'm more exclusive than that. And I think in a way they miss the point. Because some experienced producers, some people who've made an awful lot of films, have actually attended the PFM and turned around and said, this is really interesting. I've now got 60 financiers in the same room for 2 days that I can beat up. Yeah? I can actually really focus. And I can learn about my project. Because when you go through, say, 15 meetings of about half an hour ago, over 2 days, you get a lot of feedback. You get a lot of advice, and you get a certain amount of criticism. Some of it's very constructive. You also get referred from financier to financier saying, well, this isn't actually a project that we're interested in, but table 47 over there are looking for exactly this kind of thing, so you must make sure you see them. So you build up a kind of market knowledge about your project and also about the market itself in terms of financing and distribution. Where's the appetite? What are people looking for? How's it working? And that happens because of the intensity and the closeness of the space. There is a broad range of different types of financiers. There are equity funders. There are tax funders, tax-driven incentive systems that attend. There's a lot of emphasis on sales and distribution, which, as I've said, is a really important part of this. There are banks who are active in the sector. But I tend to spend less energy on screen agencies and what I call soft money. Yeah? Soft money isn't really the point of the production finance market. I appreciate how important culturally driven and government subsidy funds are. I know how important it is for our culture, in Europe especially, but it isn't the key reason for attending the PFM. You know all these people back to front if you're doing your job properly anyway. You know exactly how to get hold of their money. You should do anyway, otherwise you wouldn't be in business. What you don't know necessarily are the most appropriate, interesting financiers who are looking at smaller budgets as well as larger, who are interested in sales and distribution. Yeah? And I said that the UK sales companies are quite difficult to deal with on lower budget and foreign language films. We have quite a lot of international sales agents from Spain, Germany, France, and other territories. So we don't just basically promote the UK sales companies. That's a very important point. And we do have some broadcasters and single territory distributors attend as well. Back Films, for example, from France, has always attended for the last sort of 8 or 9 years. Next slide, please. So, as a producer, one of the things that's really important is, if you like, the precision, the care that you put into an application. Just as you would when you're looking to submit a form for the beloved media program, which we all really enjoy, don't we? It's one of the most sexy bits of the business, applying for media. Or Euromage is even more attractive.
Oh yeah, so sexy.
Oh, way to go, yeah. Of course, the truth is that these applications are time-consuming, they're difficult, they're long, and what I'm looking for is precision. I don't want to read applications that basically have a half-finished finance plan that doesn't add up, or a treatment with lots of errors and mistakes, yeah? And this sounds very kind of critical, but of course I'm thinking as if I'm a financier. If I read that, would I respond? No, I would immediately pass and move on. So the precision of your application is really, really important, yeah? It matters a lot. That's very, very important. So when we talk about the packaged elements and the promising project, etc., and how you present those elements, they're fairly clear on the application form, and you will get all this information at the end of the session. And these slides have been also translated into Spanish for you as well. And the other point I think that's worth just taking a little sideways step is the PFM says here that it's not a micro-budget film market. Well, actually, what we've done in the last 3 years was run this thing I called the micro market. And it ran separately to the PFM. And for the first time this year, it's going to run with the PFM. The micro market is looking at 25 projects, not 50 to 60, 25 projects of below 1 million euros. Okay? So we're looking at the lower budget, and it can be as low as maybe 50,000 euros, 100,000 euros. Film London has a lot of experience in micro filmmaking because it runs something called Microwave, over the last decade, where we've been making films for £100,000. I think the budget's now up to 120,000. And the UK has been promoting quite a lot of very low budget filmmaking schemes. Yeah? Now you could wonder whether or not calling it micro is a good idea, because of course as soon as a sales company or distributor hears the word micro, they say, so I can just distribute it without paying you in advance. So there are some tricks and some catches here. But the micro market, which is going to run alongside and inside the PFM this year, is one where you can apply if you've got less experience, you've got a budget below €1 million, but we will also want to meet and invite your director. So you come as a producer and you bring your director, okay? And we're promoting this event, if you like, as part of the PFM because we felt it was really important to acknowledge the things I mentioned about the changing marketplace, the pressure on budgets, the difficulty of emerging talent getting films, their first feature film or second feature film off the ground. So when you see the forms, when they're actually up there on the Film London website come May, when there's a call for projects, you'll see that you can apply either for the main PFM or for the micro market, okay? One's above 1 million, the other is below. And if it's below, you'll also be engaged in a certain amount of training and preparation. We'll be making sure that the producers on the micro scheme actually spend a day with myself and a team at Film London working on the pitch, the presentation, and the materials. So there's a sort of a more, I guess, a sense of developing talent angle to the micro scheme, yeah? But I just don't want to confuse you. I want to make sure that you realize that when you see the application form, it's either above or it's below, and it's a little more engaged if you get involved in the micro market. International producers are given priority if they're offering slates or single projects that have potential European co-production partners or European financing opportunities. Why do we do that? Why do we, if you like, promote international producers rather than UK ones? Because the media program pays 40% of my budget. And that means I have to tip over towards foreign language international projects rather than look to please the British Film Institute, which is why they don't particularly love this event, yeah? Which I think is entirely healthy. The less they love it, the better it is, yeah? Next, please. So, we talked about below 1 million, not considered, but actually they would be considered for the micro market. We've talked about the importance of the package. But one of the things that does matter, and this brings me back into your local financing and co-production partners, is at least 30% of your budget for the main PFM needs to be in place. You need to have a finance plan that's already been started. It's no good coming up with a finance plan that's got a big fat zero, yeah? In fact, frankly, in Europe, it would be unusual to start a finance plan with zero anyway, given the importance of broadcasters, local subsidies, and tax incentives. So there's always a certain amount of what I call cornerstone financing that's really important, yeah? Cornerstone financing, i.e. your building block that you're going to build around. So around 30% needs to be in place. Crucially, just so that we're all clear, your film can be shot anywhere, in any language. It's not an English language-driven market, and it is not trying to get films to come and shoot in the UK. It's got nothing to do with the PFM, okay? You can shoot it wherever you want, okay? That's very important. I will just repeat the importance, though, of having a very good English translation of your screenplay, yeah? Because what I find difficult with some producers, they're not prepared. They think they are, and then suddenly they find that actually the translation isn't a very good one and it hasn't been checked. No financier is going to be able to read that, or distributor or sales company, and go, okay, great, this is really interesting. They're not. It's going to be a very fast pass, which of course is better than a slow no, but it's going to be fast. Films which have previously been presented at the PFM are not eligible unless something's significantly changed. Because what we don't want is it to be a market which feels tired, you know, a little bit old, or we're regurgitating the same stuff. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay. So what will happen if you actually get selected is you'll see all the financiers. And in fact, we're going to do this on a digital website this year. We're not just going to have a printed brochure. We're going to make sure that you have access to all the financiers, all their profiles, yeah? And you're then going to have a chance to be able to select 5 specific meetings of the ones you really want to meet, okay? The financiers also see all of you, all the producers who've been selected, and they have a chance to be able to, I think it's around 10 meetings that they select. So on my meeting grid of 800 to 1,000 meetings, which I have to put together obviously in sort of late September before the market, basically my job is partly to try and make sure that you get as many of your meeting requests and the financiers get all of theirs. The financiers come first in terms of priorities. They come because, in terms of priority, because of course the market only hinges on their support. Yeah? They don't pay a registration fee, a delegate fee, but they do give up 2 days of their time to attend and take it seriously and engage with you. So we have to make sure that that works. Next, please. Oh, sorry, I missed something. There is a fee. Where's the cat?
Oh,
sorry
no.
about that, guys. Yeah. There is a registration fee of £230 plus VAT for the 2 days, but we cover your hotel costs for 2 nights. We don't cover your travel, but we do put you up, okay, in the Hilton where the event takes place. So there is a kind of fair balance to it, okay? Next up. Okay, so what's come out of the PFM? Next up. So this is some stats from a couple of years ago. 91.5% of the financiers said that they would like to return to the PFM, and 95% recommended the PFM to other financiers. In fact, I'm getting to the point where I have to turn away 15 to 20 financiers every year. Makes them particularly irritated because they have a sense of entitlement. Yeah? But it's probably a good sign. If you're actually sending financiers away and saying there's not enough space, that's probably good news rather than bad. 70% of them roughly responded to a survey said that they would be offering finance to projects presented, but it's too early to confirm. Now, this is one of the problems. One of the things I've noticed that really good producers make the most of is being ready to pounce once they've actually been at the PFM. In other words, their project is finance ready. Their script is ready to be read. They are absolutely engaged in closing off maybe an element of their finance plan. They've got a goal of one sales company that they want. They're very focused. The ones who fail are those who actually end up finding that they've got the wrong draft and their next draft doesn't happen for 6 months. And by that time, all those financiers and all their meetings will have gone out of their mind and they'll be on to other things. So being ready is really, really important to capture the most value from the event. Next up, please. So producers, more than 90% would recommend it, 80-odd% would return to the market in the future, 40% said that there would be specific financing. Notice the producers are very optimistic. Whenever they fill in these forms, we find that the producers think that they've been offered an enormous amount of finance, large numbers. We find the financiers are always about half the level of the producers, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Sort of tells you something that's going on there. And they would be follow-up meetings, 90% of the producers. That's very important. The follow-up is really important. It's not just an event by itself. And that's partly why we're changing the website to become interactive so that there's an ability to sign into the website and keep in touch with financiers. And they can you can upload your scripts, upload, say, new elements of your package, an actor or something, and you can engage with the financiers through the website in a personal way. Yeah? That's an important new development that we've been working on. Next up, please. We've got a whole horde of films that have been made post-attending the PFM, sometimes because of finance, sometimes because of sales attachment, sometimes because of distributors. But what I find really interesting is talking to the experienced producers who've attended, and they say to me, it's a great place to present and introduce a project into the market because you get the best feedback, you get to know your project that much better. And sometimes you have to change your strategy. After you've had those, say, 15, 20 meetings, you realize that there is a weakness or a problem in the project, or you're going to have to take a different route. And that's just as valuable as anything, because of course we all know how long it takes to be able to put film projects actually into production, let alone distribution. Yeah. So next up. So we've got all these different examples, but I'll just give you the headline number. Basically, around 80 to 85 films have been made via the PFM in the last 9 years. So every year, at least 10 films out of the 60 have got over the line. Yeah? That doesn't mean to say it's nice and easy. It means that some of those films maybe I've been tracking and I find out 3 years later that they got into production. And there might be an element of the PFM there, or there might not be. Yeah? but I find it really interesting the way the feedback comes in terms of being able to feel that you know the market for your project better. Next up. Yeah, there are a lot of different international partnerships we have. There's When East Meets West, which is a co-production market in Italy, where at least one, if not two, PFM projects are then invited to attend that, especially. We always have at least 1 to 2 New Zealand/Australian producers come via a pitching session at 37 Market South. The Ile-de-France Film Commission, which is obviously the main Paris-based organisation, have been incredibly supportive of the event. They send at least 5 to 8 producers every year, and they've also supported the micro market as well. We have a relationship with the Rome Film Festival, the new cinema network, where a couple of producers are then selected to go and attend that. Toronto send a Canadian producer. We've got links with Norway and Berlin-Brandenburg. So it is genuinely, if you like, proof of the pudding, an international network rather than an Anglo network. Thank goodness that's the case, given that we might leave Europe quite soon. Yeah. Okay, next up. So these dates are slightly different. I think you'll find that the 16th of May is when you should be looking at the Film London website. How many of you guys are going to go to Cannes, to the film festival? Okay, about a third of you, roughly, yeah. So there'll be a call in the trade press on the 16th, 17th of May. If you Google Film London, you can get onto the website very easily, www.filmlondon.org.uk. This will be in the notes that we send on to you in Spanish as well. And the deadline is around the first week of July, okay? And it is quite difficult, given the number of projects that come in, to allow you guys to be very flexible. Yeah, sorry, no problem. It's quite difficult to allow you to be that flexible, so you need to make sure you get the projects in by July. Even if you give me a note attached to the application saying that you're still waiting for maybe a letter from one financier or an element that's got to be attached, and I can be more flexible then, yeah? But that gives you a sense of the framework, okay? And we let you know whether you got in or not by, I think it's about the first week of September, okay? About sort of 6 weeks, 5 weeks before the event. And quite a lot of producers get in touch with me and ask me for advice about people that they think might be the best meetings to request. And quite a lot of producers find it difficult to get all their requests. So what we do actually during the 2 days in the hotel is to make sure that we fix you up with extra meetings in the breaks. So you'll see extra financiers at lunch or at tea time or at coffee, so that you really do cover the ground properly. And of course it's so much easier to do that because there's a lock on the outside of the hotel and I'm the only guy who's got the key, yeah? Basically it's a captive audience, yeah? So it can be quite frustrating initially when you look at your list of meetings, think, oh, but I didn't get X or I didn't get Y. But I can assure you that we do our very best to make sure that you get to see as many people as possible. I think that's all I've got to say for the moment. So we're on to our second act.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. A couple of things. Any specifics for animation films? Because I see a couple of animation producers in the room.
We are very favourable to animation, partly because we think that animation travels really well, partly because we think it's underrepresented. And we've had animators from Russia, from Eastern Europe. We've had animation projects from France. And what I find interesting is that there are specialist distributors and sales companies who really dedicate themselves. Sorry, I'll get back to the mic. Apologies. We find that specialist sales companies and specialist distributors are really keen, obviously, on meeting you guys who are into animation. And so there is a certain selective process where you can get to the right people if you've got a really good, strong animation project. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's some news also, which I'm very happy about, is that in the list of collaborators, and we should have Catalan Films and TV because, if I'm not mistaken, you reach an agreement. So Patricia is right there.
Yep.
And she just told me that you reached an agreement for 2 producers who are going to be selected for the micro and the finance market. Catalan Films will be covering the accommodation and the accreditation fee, which is great news. So thanks for that.
But they'll have to pay for their travel, will they? So they're swimming, yeah? I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
So if anybody has any question regarding that, there is Patricia, or she's Carol also, but she's Patricia and she can tell you more about this in detail. But I'm really, really happy
really
that we can have Catalan Films and TV here in that list, which is pretty amazing. I don't know I think it's a good moment right now if we have some Q&A for you before we go, because we have some time. So if anybody has a question, please raise your hand. Question to Angus, of course, regarding the market.
Yes.
One here.
Hi. Can you explain, because I saw and I knew that producers can apply with individual projects but also with slate. How does it work?
So in the second year of the PFM, we tried very hard to expand the application form to encourage more producers to apply with slates. In other words, maybe 2, 3, 4 or 5 films on their development slates. The problem we found was the response from financiers was really negative. And the reason why is because a lot of films that are in development are exactly that. They're in development. They're not finance ready. So we found that if people do apply with slates, we check very carefully to make sure that the package that I mentioned, the director, the budget, the actual status of the script, how advanced is it, are in place. Because I made a mistake that second year. I allowed too many projects that were really just ideas in early development or mid-development to be presented to financiers whose eyes glazed over. Yeah? So I learned from the mistake, and now we do encourage, if you've got 2 very strong or 3 very strong projects, all at quite an advanced stage, with the right attachments, then that's fine. Or sometimes we'll look at a slate and say, no, that's not ready, but you can still be invited. We really like this project, or these 2. So we're flexible, but from experience, I've learned that it's really important not to introduce projects too early into the market. Does that help?
Thank you.
See, everything else I said was so crystal clear, you've got no questions. So I'm going to catch a flight very quick. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Angus, for that. If any question arises, we can come back to you later. So I'll let you rest a little bit, have some water, and I'm going to change to Catalan right now, and I'm going to introduce the 3 speakers, 3 very well-known and wonderful producers that we have here. We're so lucky to have them. So I'll change to Catalan right now.